Hello, in this video we'll be looking at issue 6 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine. We'll be looking at the aggressors you get with this issue, and then letting them loose on the battlefield. Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're bringing you issue 6 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine today. In this issue, we've got a set of 3 easy-to-build aggressors for the Space Marines, as well as a pot of Abaddon Black paint. And as always, if you want to see the aggressors in action, you can use the chapter bar or look at the timecode in the description to see the game for this issue. But we'll have a quick overview before that. Obviously, we have the battle record and overview of the aggressors. So these are a fire support unit for the Space Marines, clad in heavy gravis armour and armed with flamestorm gauntlets. So this is our powerful melee weapons, which also incorporate flamethrowers. And it also notes that sometimes they're instead armed with boltstorm gauntlets and fragstorm grenade launchers. And also see the symbol is a sort of chevron there for the fire support role. And then their back record on the back. Obviously, you give them a name and go with their specialisms as well. And then come up with names for them, including the Sergeant, who's the first Sergeant we've had so far. And then we have background on Necron nobles. So when the Necrons gave up their mortal forms to become immortal machines, all of the lower rank Necrons, their personalities were erased and became mindless automata, whereas the Necron nobles were able to keep their personalities. Now they lead the lesser ones into combat. They're formidable warriors, and they're all capable tacticians as well. And then over on the next page we have several types of nobility. So we have the Pharaons, who each lead a dynasty. And then below them we have the Overlords and the Lords. And then below them the Royal Wardens, who technically aren't nobles, but sort of occupy the bodyguard and lieutenant sort of role. And also some Lords like to go into battle on these catacomb command barges as well. So it's easier for them to direct their troops. And now you have the build guide for the aggressors. So these are pushed together. Well, you might see there they have a fair number of parts. And I would recommend gluing them as well, just to make them all a bit sturdier at the end. They all follow basically the same, so they've got a 40mm base. Also, each of them has a little bit of terrain as well to occupy the spare peg hole. The bits I would recommend gluing are these bits here with the flamestorm gauntlets, and also the bits where the sort of fuel lines link to the backpack and the gauntlets, because they're a little bit looser than the rest. So they're fairly easy to put together. They just have significantly more parts per model than the ones we've seen so far. And then the painting guide, fairly similar to the other Marines we've seen so far, so mostly painting them with blue in thin coats. Then going over the mechanical parts and some of the sort of the relics and all of the armoured cables and the weapons and the fuel tanks with silver. And notes here, if you make any mistakes and get any silver on the blue, you can just go back and touch it up. And then we're adding the new Abaddon Black. And for the aggressors, this is going over the cables and then also sort of the soft under armour and all the joints of their power armour. And notes that it's worth changing your water after losing the red belcher, so any metallic flakes that are left over don't contaminate the black. And we're also going to be adding the black to the other Marines, and this is going over again all the joints in the armour, and also weapon casings and the sword casings for their chainswords, and the back of the Lieutenant's shield as well. So you do need to be a little bit careful, make sure your brush has got a fine point before you paint near bits you've already painted. With that over, we can get into the game with this issue and see the aggressors in action.
So now we can get on to our game for this issue, and this one is called Fire Support. So the mission briefing we have is that the Primaris Aggressors have forced their way into the Necron facility, and then being ideally equipped for close quarters combat, they are now rushing to relieve their brothers, whereas the Royal Warden has found himself in the crosshairs of the aggressors, and he's been forced to enlist the insane Skorpekh Destroyers to try and protect himself. So we've got the setup, we're on the larger board again this time. We've got the 3 Skorpekh Destroyers and the Royal Warden along the left-hand side of the board there, and then the 3 aggressors over on the right-hand side. Then we have our datasheet profiles. So we've got, for the Primaris Aggressors, see they've only got a 5-inch move because they're in very heavy armour, so they're a bit slower. They have a weapon skill of 3+, 3 wounds and 3 attacks each, and a 3+ save. Their weapons are their flamestorm gauntlets, which can be used either in melee or for shooting. They now have a characteristic range, which we will go over in a second, but you can see the flamestorm gauntlets shooting attack has a 12-inch range, but they also have the melee attack. We learnt about the pistol weapon type in the last issue, but here we have some more weapon types. We've got assault here, and 2d6. I'll explain what that means in a minute. The shooting attack has an AP of 0, but in melee they have an AP of -3, and as you can see under their abilities, when they make shooting attacks, they automatically hit. That means you don't need to roll to hit, it's always successful. It also means that even though we don't know what their ballistic skill is, it doesn't matter because they're always going to hit with their shooting. And then we've got the Royal Warden and the Skorpekh Destroyers. The Royal Warden has gained an attacks characteristic of 3, which I don't think we knew about before, but it doesn't give you a weapon skill. So technically if he gets engaged in melee, we don't actually know what he hits on, so I'll just try not to get him in melee, I suppose. Otherwise he's the same, but his Relic Gauss Blaster has a range of 30 inches, and it has a type of Rapid Fire 2, and again explain what that means in a second. And AP is -2. He also has an ability called Living Metal, as do the Destroyers. This means that at the start of each Necron turn, they regain 1 wound that they've lost earlier, so if they take damage they can regenerate effectively. And the Destroyers are the same as they were in the previous issue, apart from gaining that Living Metal ability. But then going over what range means, pretty self-explanatory really. It's the maximum distance at which you can shoot a ranged weapon. So if anything further away, you cannot shoot it with that weapon. But it does note here that you can't make a shooting attack while you're within engagement range, and a ranged weapon cannot target an enemy unit that is within engagement range of another friendly model either. And then we have the weapon types that we've just seen, so it just explains how the weapon works really. A melee weapon obviously can only be used within engagement range, we know that already. An assault weapon, which the flamestorm gauntlets are, you can still shoot that if you advanced earlier in the turn. So that even though they're slow, they can move more quickly by advancing and still shoot. And then rapid fire, which is the Royal Warden's weapon, doubles the number of attacks if the target is within half the weapon's range, which is within 15 inches in this case. So it's rapid fire 2, so it has 2 shots at 30 inches range, but if it's within 15, it doubles to 4. And then there's the description of the Living Metal ability there. You will have noticed that the Flamestorm gauntlets have an assault characteristic of 2d6 rather than just a fixed number. What that means is every time you attack with the weapon, you roll that number of dice and add up the results, and that's how many shots you can make. So in this case, you roll 2d6, add them up, and that's how many shots it gets for that shooting phase. But in future shooting phases, you have to roll again. And there's just a description of Living Metal here as well. So this Destroyer that had lost 2 wounds, now at the beginning of its turn regains a wound, so it's only lost 1 now. And then we have our playthrough example, and there's a tutorial here on how to check range, so using the 12-inch range ruler that you've got. But if it's more than 12 inches away, then obviously this range ruler isn't long enough, so you can just use your finger or whatever to mark where it was and then move it and measure longer distances that way. Most people, I think, would also have longer range rulers available, or just use a tape measure. It's quite a common thing to do. And in this example, in Space Marines turn 1, all the aggressors advance, but none of them are within 12 inches, so there's no shooting. Then on to the Necron turn, and I won't go any over this in great detail because it's really just examples of what we learned about on the previous page. So we've got the Royal Warden who can move up to shoot things within 15 inches. He can shoot 4 times, as it explains. And then the Necrons can charge and fight because the Destroyers may well be in range. It doesn't say the Royal Warden himself can actually charge, doesn't mention it. I suppose he can technically, but as I said, we don't really know his weapon skill characteristics, so not sure what he would be hitting on in melee with his 3 attacks. As you'll see from the victory conditions, I probably don't want him in melee anyway, so I doubt I will be wanting to charge with him anyway. Then back to the Space Marine turn, and here it goes over how to use the assault, automatically hitting assault 2d6 Flamestorm gauntlets. So there's just an example here to run through that. And then the Space Marines probably will want to charge and attack with their AP -3 gauntlets as well, so that's an example here. And then on to Necron's turn 2, and the game continues. But to win the game, the Space Marines have to have killed the Royal Warden before the end of the 4th turn. So if the Royal Warden survives for 4 whole turns, the Necrons win, and if he doesn't, the Space Marines do. But with that, we will set up the board and get straight to the game. And here is our battlefield setup. So you can see we've got all the Necrons over on the left-hand side and the Space Marines over on the right. And as I mentioned, we will need to keep track of turns in this game because the Space Marines only have 4 turns to kill the Royal Warden. So we'll go on to turn 1 for the Space Marines.
So all of the aggressors can advance because they're far too far away to shoot. I'll roll them all on camera, but I'll start with this one up here at the top and then go down to the sergeant and then the one at the bottom. So one at the top of the screen gets to go an extra inch, Sarge an extra 4, and the guy at the bottom of the screen an extra 6. There we are, all the aggressors have moved up, beelining towards the Royal Warden because he's the most important target, and even though we could still shoot, even though advanced, yeah, definitely nothing in range.
Yep, there's only got a 12-inch range. So there's nothing more to do for Space Marine turn 1, so on to Necron turn 1. And my Necrons have moved up, the 3 Destroyers have moved their 8 inches forwards, because they didn't advance, they can charge, potentially. And the Royal Warden has moved sideways, but getting himself within 15 inches of Sarge in the middle, because, as we learned earlier, 15 inches is within half range with his rapid fire weapon, so he gets to double his shots. And then onto the shooting phase, so he will do just that, and he will shoot at the Sergeant, which is the central aggressor. So rapid fire 2 weapon with shots doubled makes 4 attacks, so these hit on 3s with his 3+ ballistic skill. He's got 3 hits, and these have an AP of -2.
Yep, so Sarge needs to make a 5+ save. He made 1, so he is alive on 1 wound.
because they had 3 wounds to start with. Yep, so Sarge has 1 wound remaining. Remember, we use the dice to mark how many wounds they have remaining. And then we're on to the charge phase, and we'll start charging down here at the bottom of the screen with this destroyer. He will charge the aggressor directly across from him. And his charge distance is a 7, that probably is enough. That is indeed enough to get him to there, to engage that aggressor. Then the one in the middle will charge at the sergeant. Probably needs a bigger roll. A 6 won't be enough. That is not enough, so the destroyer at the top of the picture will charge to him as well. He's going to need about a 9, which he does not get with a 6. So that means in the fight phase we've only got 1 destroyer in melee, and he gets to hit this aggressor. Destroyer has 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits.
6+ save for aggressors in melee against destroyers. I didn't make it either, so that aggressor is down to 1 wound as well.
Yeah, because AP -3. So that aggressor is down to 1 wound as well. But that's the end of Necron turn 1. So on to turn 2 for the Space Marines.
So for my movement, this aggressor at the top of the screen had to advance. If he moved up normally, he was just outside of 12 inches of the Royal Warden, so he advanced and rolled a 4. Sarge has moved up normally, because he can still shoot the Royal Warden and move normally, so he'll be able to charge something later. While the aggressor down at the bottom is just going to stay in melee and occupy that destroyer for now. Right, in the shooting phase, I'll do them individually, just in case. I'll start off with this aggressor at advance, and he's going to fire his flamestorm gauntlets at the Royal Warden.
Yeah, and remember you can do that, because with an assault weapon you can fire even if you advance. And it makes 2d6 shots.
Yep, so he gets 12 automatic hits.
That's the maximum possible, and yeah, no roll next hit needed, so we just have to make his saves. So the Royal Warden needs to make enough of his 3+ saves to live. 12, he has failed 4, which is exactly how many wounds he has, and so he dies. So the Royal Warden goes down, because he only has 4 wounds and he took 4. And that technically is a Space Marine victory, because all they had to do to win was kill the Royal Warden before the end of turn 4. But we will finish the turn off just to show what else aggressors can do, besides delete Royal Wardens with flames. So the Sergeant also gets to shoot.
So Sarge will shoot at this destroyer with the big sword. So he has 2d6 automatic hits. He gets 9.
So this destroyer has to make 9 3+ saves. Only failed 2, so the destroyer is down to 1 wound. And then this aggressor down here can't shoot because he's within engagement range 1 inch of an enemy model, and he doesn't have a pistol.
So we're on to the charge phase, where this aggressor cannot charge, so the Sergeant will charge this destroyer that's wounded to try and finish it off. Nothing too low. Well, 10 is easily enough, so he'll just go in like that. And I'll start the fight phase off with Sarge as well. He has 3 attacks that hit on 3s, getting 2.
And an AP of -3 with flamestorm gauntlets in melee, so I need to make both of my 6+ saves. No. So that destroyer is killed. And then the other aggressor does get to fight down here, so might as well.
He also has 3 attacks hitting on 3s, getting 2 as well.
So another 2 6+ saves thanks to the AP. Made neither, so that destroyer is down to 1 wound. But yeah, this game is a Space Marine victory. I guess we'll do a best of 3 again as we've been doing previously. So we'll set it up again and hope the Necrons can do a little bit better. So the battlefield has been set up again, and on to Space Marines turn 1.
So we're going to do something a little bit different this game. All the aggressors are just going to move up normally and not advance.
Okay, that's the end of their turn, so on to Necrons turn 1. Well, I'm going to do slightly different tactics as well. So all the destroyers advanced. The ones at the top and the bottom rolled 5, so they moved a mighty 13 inches, and the one in the middle just rolled a 1, so moved 9. It would have been like a 12-inch charge, so I wasn't really that bothered about charging this turn, but they're going to get out front, try and put as much distance away from the Royal Warden as possible, keep the aggressors back, hopefully. And the Royal Warden himself has just moved 6 inches this way towards this bottom left corner of the table. And then the Royal Warden will shoot at this aggressor over here, but he's not within 15 inches, so he only gets 2 shots because he's not within half range with his rapid fire weapon. So these hit on 3s, they both hit with an AP of -2.
5+ saves for aggressors. Oh, made both.
Okay, and that is the end of the Necron turn. So on to Space Marines turn 2.
Yeah, so for my movement phase, everyone has just moved up normally again. And then start the shooting phase. I'll start down here at the bottom of the screen. This aggressor is going to fire his flamestorm gauntlets at this destroyer. He gets 2d6 automatic hits for 9.
So 9 3+ saves. Failed 4, so that's enough to kill that destroyer. So this destroyer is melted.
And then I'll do the Sergeant. He's going to fire his flamestorm gauntlets at that destroyer in the middle. And he gets 2d6 automatic hits for only 8 this time.
So 8 3+ saves. Failed 2, so that destroyer is down to 1 wound.
And finally, this aggressor at the top is going to fire at the remaining destroyer. 2d6 automatic hits. Only 4 this time.
4 3+ saves. Oh, failed 1, so that destroyer is down to 2 wounds.
So, onto the charge phase. Start with this aggressor, he's going to charge. He's going to charge this destroyer. Nothing too low. A is definitely enough. So he's actually going to go around the destroyer. Sergeant next, he's going to go and try and charge this one in the middle. Oh, 12, that's easily enough. Yeah, so he's just going to run around the destroyer as well. And finally, the remaining aggressor is going to charge the same destroyer. Probably going to need a fairly decent roll. Well, a 9 is definitely going to be enough, I think. So a 9 is definitely enough. He's going to go in like that. I'll start the fight phase with this aggressor up at the top. 3 attacks hitting on 3s, getting 2.
2 6+ saves. Made neither, so that destroyer is dead.
And then we have the 2 aggressors fighting the destroyer in the middle. I'll just roll them all together. 6 attacks hitting on 3s. Ooh, only getting 3.
3 saves. Needs to make all of them now. Oh, I made 1 save, but yeah, it takes 2 wounds and dies because there's only 1 left. So no destroyers left as we go on to Necron turn 2. So the Royal Warden is going to run away into the corner, basically to try and get as far away from the aggressors as possible, so at least only 2 of them can charge him, probably. And then he will shoot. He'll shoot at this one here, that's a bit further down the screen, I think. And he's within 15 inches at least, which is half the range of his rapid-fire weapon. So he does get 4 shots, which hit on 3s. 3 hits. 3
5+ saves for that aggressor. Made 2 of them.
Now he takes 1 wound. But then that's be the end of his turn. He's definitely not going to charge. So on to Space Marines turn 3.
So in my turn, the aggressor at the top of the screen advanced, and he rolled a 2, so it's going to take him a little while to get back into the game. The other 2 just moved up normally, so they can prepare to charge the Royal Warden later in the turn. But before that, they're going to try and roast him with their gauntlets, so I'm going to roll them both together. So we have 4d6 automatic hits. That's not that good, that's only 11.
So 11 3+ saves for the Royal Warden, and he's failed 5, so he takes 5 wounds and dies. So once again, the Space Marines have won the game. It took them until turn 3 to do it this time, but they definitely killed the Royal Warden in time. So definitely a Space Marine victory. They won 2, there's not even any point playing the third game, and I don't think there's any much point letting the Necrons go first as we have been doing, because I think they'll just move up and get flamed again and it won't go any different for them. So definitely Space Marine victory in this game, and we'll recap all that for you now. So that was the game for issue 6 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine. It was pretty convincing. How do you think that went?
Yeah, there isn't too much to say. I mean, I did get some fairly good rolls for the number of hits for the flamestorm gauntlets and for my saving throws, but I think basically once you get 2 of the aggressors into range of the Royal Warden, he's probably toast. Unfortunately, the rules work heavily in the aggressor's favour. There's usually an additional step between rolling the number of hits and then saves, so I suspect in future issues where we have the aggressors, they're going to be much less effective.
Yeah, I think it does make them look probably more effective than they actually are, and it makes the destroyers look worse than they are. We've said that a couple of times already so far in this magazine.
And also, smaller boards, if you watch Conquest as well, aggressors are really, really dangerous on small boards because they're slow compared to regular Marines, and they're really their biggest weakness. The extra wound helps. They're a little bit harder to kill, but their slow speed and relatively short range really hinders them, and that will just get worse on larger board sizes.
Yeah, but in this game where you had 2 choices, you could either move a lot in the first turn and be in range in your second turn, as you did the first time, or move a little bit and then not be at risk of being charged, and then be able to flame the destroyers. So
yeah, and I think probably the way to win with these rules of the Necrons is to you basically just need to hold up the aggressors long enough and ideally prevent them from shooting with their flamers. I'm not really sure how you do that. The destroyers just aren't quite fast enough.
And at least stopping them from shooting gives the Royal Warden more time to get away, but the problem is that the aggressors are also actually quite good in melee as well, with 3 attacks and an AP -3. If the destroyers were at their full effectiveness, then they would be a bit better. But it is really that extra step that's just missing from the rules that really, on average, it would cut the number of saving rolls I have to make by 2/3. I should only really be making, that time one and you got 12 hits.
On average, you should have had to make 4 saves and 12.
Not 12. But it's just unfortunate for the Necron player at this point, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice that you do get living metal, though. I mean, it never actually came up.
Yeah, I know. At the start of my turn, I never had a wounded Necron. They were all dead. Yeah. And I think basically every Necron unit that has more than 1 wound has living metal. Yeah. So it's going forward, that's just one of the things Necrons do. They say they heal over time. So it's nice to learn about weapon types as well. Obviously, the fact that the flamestorm got assault weapons meant they could advance and shoot, which makes up a little bit for their slow speed. The fact that they hit automatically also makes up for the fact we don't know what their ballistic skill is yet. And then, the rapid fire weapons are pretty common. A lot of models will be getting that.
The Royal Warden's Gauss Blaster is actually quite a dangerous weapon. Fortunately, he's just one model, but And I guess talking about the aggressors as well, I like the look of them. They do have fit that, the heavy armoured flamethrower look. And the magazine did mention there are the loadout, which is arguably the better one, but this one's a convenient way to learn new rules.
And one of them is actually a sergeant as well. So
it's actually the first sergeant we've had from the Space Marines because the assault intercessors didn't come as one.
The painting scheme so far is obviously fairly basic still, but eventually the sergeant probably will get a different coloured helmet to the other ones.
He'll end up having a slightly different profile as well.
Yeah, so although he's nothing special at the moment, squad leaders are something that we'll learn about as well, so that's just something to note.
These models in particular are easy to build ones that came out of the start 8th edition, and we're not sure whether they're actually on sale anymore. I think these models are about £20, and the full aggressor kit's more than that. So getting them for £9 is quite good. And if you can't actually buy these again, and you actually wanted these models, or if you just wanted aggressors with flamestorm gauntlets, it's a much cheaper way of getting them.
Yes, the full kit does come with the option for flamestorm gauntlets as well, but if you're happy with the single pose models, then these ones are cheaper. Yeah, and it is weird actually that they would have with the magazine a model that isn't technically on sale anymore. I don't really know why they would do that, because I believe these haven't been on sale for a year or so at this point. So yeah, it just seems a little bit strange, but I think that's it for this issue. So if you enjoyed this video, then let us know. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you've played this game, how did it go for you? It'd be interesting to know if anyone's actually managed to win with the Necrons. What are your thoughts on aggressors with this loadout or otherwise? We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.